Hi everybody, it's Battle Him again. I want to recommend a book today. I'm sort of barricaded in my bathroom right now because my roommates are taking up the rest of the space. Okay, so the book that I'm going to recommend is called Deal With It, Living Well with PTSD. One moment, I'm just getting my notes because I made a lot of notes on this book and I want to talk about it because it's very inspiring. It's by Dr. John A. King. I was looking for the author's name. I was watching his YouTube channel as well, and it's also very inspiring. And basically the reason why I started reading the book was because I was getting into some of my old habits from before. I was actually watching Chris Watts' trial. If you don't know who Chris Watts is, he's a psychopath that murdered his unborn child, his wife, and killed his 2 living daughters. And when I go into these phases of watching videos of psychopathy and reflecting on pathological narcissism, which is really the bulk of the material on this forum, I know that I'm slipping back into a lifestyle that I'm trying to get away from, and that is dwelling too much on dark thoughts, and I'm allowing the trauma to monopolize my present. And so I Googled recovering from CPTSD or something of the sort, basically a program for recovering or something, and I happened upon this book. And the author is a survivor of horrific form of child abuse. He was trafficked by his biological parents, and he lived his life for the most part normally, and in his 40s he had a sudden dramatic recall event where he started screaming, and he all of a sudden the memories of the sexual abuse that he went through at the hands of his parents along with his sister started flooding his mind. And I've never experienced visual flashbacks or night terrors, and he has. PTSD comes in many forms. There's a dissociative PTSD. There's a where you have visual flashbacks and night terrors. There's reenactments. There's basically emotional flashbacks. You know, it's a very multifaceted diagnosis, and everybody reacts in a different way to remembering certain traumatic events. And so this is the worst case scenario, in my opinion. Human trafficking of children by biological parents. There are so many layers of betrayal involved in his story. And first of all, I want to say to you, John, from the bottom of my heart, I'm very sorry And it's not because I see you as a victim. In fact, I see you as a very powerful voice for people that suffer from trauma. But I'm just very sorry that you had to deal with that. And I'm saying that as like an equal or even a subordinate to your genius, because I really think your book is special. It's because I empathize with what you're going through and the level of betrayal of having to walk away from the one unit of people that everybody is telling you that you're supposed to trust. And in fact, they're the ones that betray you. That's a very difficult thing to come to terms with for anybody, no matter what the situation, even if it's emotional abuse, even if it's some people within this community have not been sexually abused but have realized that they've had a Stockholm Syndrome where their entire life has been manipulated by their mother or father, and they've had no self-identity, and they're fucking terrified at the age of 30 or 25 to all of a sudden have to construct that identity that has been taken away from them in early childhood. So there's lots of different layers to PTSD. And so I want to get into the book. Basically, it's a narrative style. So he's talking about his experiences, and he's also pointing to the different things he lost in the course of realizing that he was sexually abused at the age of, in his 40s. He lost his marriage, he became estranged from his children, he lost his job, his personality changed. In other words, the neurological changes that happened when he recalled the events made him into something different than he was before. And he couldn't recognize himself. And that's another very important point to take away, is that we have to realize that this is a physical brain injury. It's an altering of the brain on a formative level, on a physical level. And we have to understand that in order to cope with it in any way we can. And then he goes into saying, and this is the most important point, after everything that you've gone through, after going to therapy, after processing these things, it is your responsibility to take back control of the you that is today. And first of all, I feel that that point is not explored in a lot of the literature on this topic. There are many reasons for that. First of all, when people are in a state of trauma or traumatic bonding, they've been gaslit to believe that they were the perpetrator of their misfortunes, and they were sucked in to a web of deceit. And in order for them to get well, they have to stop criticizing themselves and start criticizing the people within their environment. And so this is necessary to break free of the narrative that was created for your mind, in your mind, by the sociopath. And so within a therapeutic context, when you're a therapist and you have a person that has had a narcissistic marriage or a narcissistic childhood background or familial narcissism, you have to prove to this person that they weren't the problem, that these people were the problem, and they basically fooled them or they exploited them in some way. If you can't prove that to them, then they'll never get better, because the narrative in their mind is false. They have a lot of false memories. They've been taught that love is controlling and domineering. And so you need to to be able to take their hand and say, it's not your fault. This was done to you. I'm sorry. If you don't do that, then their past is falsified. It's counterfeit. And so the actual, therapy community is reticent to say, you know what, now you have to own it. Now is your time. Now every choice you make is yours. Now you're in your own body. You have to take possession, repossess yourself. You've been dispossessed, but now you have to be repossessed. Otherwise, they still have the power. That is very difficult to convey within a therapeutic context without being insensitive. And, the victim or whoever was targeted is in full rights to say, well, wait a second. We came in through this door and you were telling me that all this time my parents were narcissists and my sister was a narcissist and my brother was a narcissist, and you've been telling me that I'm the only good guy, and now you want me to take responsibility? You know what I mean? That's one of the reasons. The second reason is monetary. If you could convince people that their brain injury is permanent and that there's very little they can do in order to modify their brain injury, then you can basically hold them in a state of dependence on you as a therapist and a mental caretaker. And the problem with that, of course, is that it reinforces the pattern for the person that is receiving the therapy. They have to depend on somebody else in order to define their reality and in order to function. This is the catch-22 of this diagnosis, is that you were pulled by the hair into your past. And now that you've seen everything that's happened there, you all of a sudden have to walk back into the future and continue your life. Otherwise, the therapy is not complete. And this is irrespective of what sort of abuse, whether it be on a battlefield. You have to convince the soldier that their feelings matter, that their understanding of death and war are valid, and that now they have to come to peace with what they've done, and that they were exploited in their mind. You have to go through that in order for them to move forward. But that's what I like about this approach, is that basically it's the piece of the puzzle that's missing. The piece of the puzzle that's missing is that you're either in your body or you're not in your body. If you keep telling yourself that my present self has been contaminated by past demons, and that I will always be fighting these demons, and that it's not me with a capital M, it's me with a lowercase m now because there's something controlling me, then you're not in your body. You're either disempowered or you're empowered. And that's the main message of this book to me. I'd like to continue in the next video talking about the wonderful quotes and the wonderful passages in this book, because there are so many insights. It's a very dense book. It's very impactful. And it's very hard to understand, I think, because it's so profound. Literally, you can write a book on this book. I don't feel like even what I'm saying in the video can do it justice, so I suggest you read it. I'm gonna go point by point because I made my own notes. I've gone from 7 pages to 2 pages in the interests of brevity. But I'm happy because it's left me hopeful. It's left me hopeful for the future, and that's what a lot of people within this community need, and people that have been victimized and whose life has been leveled and reduced to fertilizer. And I'm quoting John on this. He said his life was reduced to fertilizer. People need to read it as well, because this is how you win the game. Alright, that's it for now. Kisses.